All right. You start at the beginning right now, you mean? Okay, let me make sure that that's not the management one then.
I'm using ImmuSoft.
Yeah. I'm Matthew Schultz, the CEO of ImmuSoft. We're a gene therapy company based in Seattle that turns patient cells into drug factories. So your body is made up of cells, and all these cells produce proteins, the building blocks of life. And they make these with the genetic instructions that they're born with. We modify these instructions to produce other useful treatments. So from a practical point of view, we'll take a patient's cells out, we give them new instructions, and then we put them back in the body. So instead of going to the doctor, getting a drug, and taking it, we take the patient. Instead of producing a drug, going to the doctor, injecting the drug, we take the patient's cells out of their body, give them new instructions, and put them back, where they will migrate to their bone marrow and produce the treatment for many years on their own.
Awesome. Can we do another take just specifically about the factory piece of it? So cells, protein factories, responsible for keeping your body healthy.
Yeah. So your body is made up of cells, and these cells are all factories, and they produce proteins and enzymes, the building blocks of life. Everything that's responsible for keeping you alive is made by these cells, and the cells produce these things with their own genetic instructions. Think about it. Your body can take a hamburger and turn it into flesh and blood, and it does this with these factories and these genetic instructions. ImmuSoft's technology gives the cells new instructions to produce useful therapeutics.
Wasn't it a ham sandwich the other day?
It was a ham sandwich, I know. I do breakfast sandwich, and I do beer is the other one I use a lot actually. If I'm at the bar, I say it's turning beer into you, but it depends on my mind. I can do the ham sandwich if you think it's a little better. Oh no, I did ham sandwich earlier on the earlier take.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I just started the other day on the phone. Sorry, go.
You're good. So, could you tell us a little bit about what happens when there's some malfunction or the body's not doing this?
Yeah. So some patients have genetic diseases Some patients have rare genetic diseases in which they cannot produce some of these critical proteins or enzymes needed for life. ImmuSoft's technology can put back the missing protein or put back the missing enzyme and allow them to function normally. Actually, I don't like that. Thanks.
I would also not say rare genetic diseases because it's for infectious diseases too.
Yeah, well, this was, so I was supposed to do an example with both was the original thing, but I can...
yeah, for right now, let's keep it general because I think this is just back to the general point.
Okay. So some patients are missing the instructions they need to produce proper enzymes or to produce an antibody that's effective at treating a disease. ImmuSoft's technology puts those instructions back into the cells and allows them to produce what's missing. So it seems clumsy.
A little bit of the end.
Yeah.
I mean, it made sense. I think you were thinking a lot what you were talking.
Yeah. Some patients are missing. In some patients, some patients are missing these instructions or have damaged instructions to prevent them from producing what they need. ImmuSoft's technology has the ability to put back those instructions or to give them new instructions to produce useful things like antibodies for infectious diseases.
Awesome. Could we do a take saying people instead of patients? Just some people?
Yeah. Some people are missing the instructions needed to produce these critical enzymes, and some people are missing the instructions to produce these enzymes, or they have damaged instructions that prevent them from functioning properly. ImmuSoft's technology adds those instructions back, or gives them instructions that allow them to produce useful things for fighting infectious diseases, like antibodies.
Awesome. Very cool. Now we can talk. You can do the examples like infectious diseases, and then your first indication.
Yeah.
And then the HIV.
Okay. Our first clinical application is a rare genetic disease called MPS I. In this case, patients aren't able to make an enzyme. They need to break down waste sugars in their cells. And it's typically lethal by the time they're in their young teens. ImmuSoft's technology could put that... Our first clinical application is for a rare genetic disease called MPS I. In this case, patients lack the ability to make an enzyme to break down waste sugars in their cells. ImmuSoft's approach takes their cells and gives them the instructions needed to produce this missing enzyme, and then puts them back in their body where they'll produce it on their own without the need for further interventions. In the case of an infectious disease like HIV, there's known to be broadly neutralizing, very powerful antibodies that are effective at suppressing the disease. But no one's been able to efficiently elicit these with a vaccine. ImmuSoft's technology allows us to put the gene sequence for these known powerful antibodies into any patient, where their body can produce it and fight the disease without the need for HIV drugs.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Yeah.
We're going to stay away from the biochemical environment of youth thing, right? Is that?
The biochemical.
Yeah, so basically, if you were to take your blood from birth until death, if you were to take your blood once a year from birth until death, a lot of things in it change. It's not the same. So you can think of obvious things like estrogen or testosterone that might diminish with time, but countless other things do as well. And there's no way you can take enough drugs to put them all back. But with a technology like ImmuSoft's, you could actually recreate the biochemical environment of youth as you age. You can program your cells to produce all the things that are missing, and they'll secrete it 24/7. So it doesn't matter if they have a very short half-life, or they're impossible to manufacture or stabilize, or you'd have to inject them all the time. Your body will go about producing these things for the rest of your life.
That was said really well. I don't know, because
Yeah.
I imagine if it's true. I got distracted by what he was actually saying. I stopped listening.
Yeah.
I stopped listening
Yeah.
to the act.
Yeah, well, it is depending on who I'm talking to, I use it as an example. I mean, the irony, of course, is that that's exactly the point of a treatment like this. It opens the doors to things that weren't possible before. It's real easy to think a treatment's crazy because we have no way to manufacture a treatment, or we don't even know what the molecule is, or have no way of stabilizing it or isolating it. I mean, in the case of the muscle-building protein follistatin, to take it therapeutically, even at research grade, would cost about $50,000 a month unless you could scale it up to an enormous scale. With a treatment like ours, you get treated once and your body makes it for free.
So can you tell a little bit about gene therapy approaches, where they are before ImmuSoft steps in, and what the challenges are of that?
So people have been trying to modify DNA ever since they knew what DNA was. It was immediately regarded as the code of life, and the prize for being able to manipulate it is really profound. But the early technologies that were available to do this, and the ones that have been used for the past few years, they rely on things like viruses that are very challenging to produce, very expensive, and can be immunogenic if they're injected. They also, in the case of the injected ones, can only be used once, or your body will react very badly to them the next time. And in the case of the other, well, I don't want to use ex vivo cell therapy, sorry.
If you also break that down a little bit further, so you say it's immunogenic, break that down into super layman's terms.
Yeah. So people have been trying to modify DNA ever since they knew what DNA was. I mean, we're talking about the code of life here. If you have the ability to manipulate it, you can manipulate anything. But the tools that have been used historically to modify DNA are very crude. So traditionally, viruses were used to modify DNA. And this was done in one of two ways. Either they took cells out and modified them with a virus, or they injected the virus right into the patient. And in the case where they were taking it out, the viruses were often being put into stem cells, which could mature and differentiate in ways that were hard to predict. They also, so it's back into terminology again. So people have been trying to manipulate DNA. People have been trying to manipulate genes ever since they knew what DNA was. Typically, this is done with a virus, and either the virus is used in cells outside the body or injected into the body. In the case that it's injected into the body, the body has a vested interest in not having viruses put there, so it responds very violently to it. And this means that you can only get away with this once. It's kind of like a vaccine, that once your body's exposed to it, it's going to fight it the second time very aggressively. And even in the case where viruses are used outside of the body, they're very expensive to produce, and sometimes have been.
I think let's just have like a really quick,
Yeah.
a little bit more high level on the viruses, just at least one or two takes of that.
Okay.
So like I agree, so like just looking at this particular bullet, right? And I think you're actually covering it, and it's almost, like I'm following you very logically. I'm just trying to think of the rest of the time, I think how much would
How to shorten it?
Yeah.
like right here, it's focused for decades. Like I really like the thing, what did you say about the DNA, the thing of life, what was that?
Oh, the code of life.
All right, that's it, the code. So I really like that open, so that's one, right? And then you only have really two more things.